Hello, this is Ormin Sodiano for Loci Solutions. Today I'd like to demonstrate how to quickly create a fast and content-rich dashboard using Loci Insight and Microsoft Excel 2010. This demonstration will assume that you are familiar with some of the concepts, such as pivot tables and slices, but even if you aren't, you will see how easy it is to create these dashboards. So let's make a start here. I have a new Excel workbook open, and the first thing I want to do is to connect to my Loci Insight cube. This is a relatively small cube of around 10 million records, but it will give you an idea of the performance that Loci Insight allows. As you can see, Excel automatically creates a pivot table for the cube data, and I'm just going to select the first measure to view without putting any other information in there, because what I want to do is I want to create some slices. Slices are Excel's built-in selectors, and I'm just going to add selections for the product class description, the sales region and country, and the year. Excel creates the slices as movable elements with all the possible entries for each of the selected fields. I can now move the slices into the rough position that I want them for my dashboard, but first I need to move the pivot table out of the way. It is important to keep the pivot table because the slices are actually directly linked to it. For this dashboard, I will place the sales region and the country on the left-hand side, and then the product class description and the year to the right. Finally, I will change the color scheme and do some tidying up to make things look a little bit nicer. With the slices in place, I can now actually add some data. The first thing I'm going to do is to add a graph tracking net sales and gross profit percentage for months of the year. To do this, I go back to my original pivot table which I moved out of the way earlier. I deselect the current measure and instead select the measures that I'm now interested in, which are gross profit percentage and net sales value. And I want to see this per month, as I said earlier. Now I'm ready to create a graph from this data, but before I do that, I'm quickly going to take a copy of this pivot table so that I can use it in my next display. The reason I take a copy is to maintain the link with the slices. To create the chart, I'm just going to select Pivot Chart from the Pivot Table tool options. I'm going to select a nice column, and Excel once again automatically creates a graph for me. I will move that into the correct position between my two sets of slices and expand it to fill the space available, like so. As you can see, the gross profit percentage is not visible due to the difference in scales, and therefore I want to display this measure on a secondary axis. I do this by selecting the series gross profit percentage, choosing to format the selection, and placing it on a secondary axis. This is still not very clear, so now I want to display this data series as a line chart rather than as a bar chart. Much better. The final step for this chart is some nicer formatting. So I'm going to change the bar chart to a 3D format, move the legend to underneath the chart rather than on the side, and finally add some nice formatting to my line chart. And there you have the first part of our dashboard. The second part of the dashboard will be a table of the monthly sales per brand. To build this, I return to the second pivot table we created earlier and make the required changes. First, I remove the gross profit percentage since I no longer need this. I switch the month from the row to the column. And finally, I select brand description as a new row. I then select the entire pivot table and move it back to the position that I want it, which is underneath my original graph. Now that it's in position, I'm going to tidy things up a little bit. Firstly, I'm going to change the design colors to match the rest of my dashboard. Then I'm going to do a little bit of formatting to make sure we can see all the numbers. And remove the totals, since I don't think they're actually necessary for this particular display. Okay. I'm not too worried at this stage that things are beginning to look a little bit spread out and messy. I will tidy everything up once I have all the elements in place. The final piece for this display is to add some spark lines. On the left, we add a column representation of the monthly sales, and we copy that down through all the various brands. Don't forget to add a few more at the bottom, just because in another month or another year, there may be more brands than you have in this current set. And on the other side, a win-loss spark line highlighting the lowest and highest selling months for each particular brand. Again, we're going to make the colors a little bit more contrasty and copy them all the way down, not forgetting to add a few more than we have in this particular set, just in case we run into a larger set later on. The last thing I want to do for the current dashboard is to add a small chart highlighting the annual sales per brand. Since the table I just created is already fairly close to that, I will just copy that pivot table and again move it out of the way and make the required changes there. In this case, the only change I need to make is actually to remove the month from the column labels to give me the annual sales. I can now add a chart to this. I will select a pie chart in this case, and once again move it to the position that I want it at, which is over here, just underneath my sales region and country slices. The final part of the process is to clean everything up and make sure that it all fits onto the screen. This can obviously take a while to get everything perfect, but in this case I'm just going to move some things around here quickly to tidy things up. Move the graph across, make it a little bit bigger, and finally remove the grid lines and headings to give you a nice clean looking dashboard. And there you have it. Now we can see the dashboard in action. Because we linked everything to the original pivot table, any change we make in the slices is reflected across the entire dashboard. So I can select a sales region, a country, a class of product, or change the year, and the entire dashboard changes to reflect those selections. Bear in mind that behind this dashboard is a Loci Insight cube with around 10 million records, and we are seeing near instantaneous return of data from that cube. This is made possible by the tailoring and attention to detail that Loci Solution brings to every cube's development. And that completes today's demonstration. If you'd like any more information about our company, Loci Solutions, or the product used in this demonstration, Loci Insight, please visit our website at www.loci-insight.com. Thank you for watching, and I hope that this demonstration gave you some idea of the things that we can do with Loci Insight and Microsoft Excel 2010.